Members, it's 10:45. Can I invite members attending the meeting to take their seat so the clerk could do a head count? It seems we do have a quorum. Please, members. Okay, I call to order the meeting. I call to order the first meeting of the Bills Committee on Guangzhou-Shenzhen-Hong Kong Express Rail Link Co-location Bill. First of all, we'll proceed to the election of chairman. I'm sure you're familiar with the procedure. Mr. Jeffrey Lam, I nominate Mrs. Regina Ip. Any seconder, please? Mr. Gary Chen. Mrs. Yip, do you accept the nomination? Yes, I do. Any other nomination, please? Mr. Kenneth Leung. I nominate Ms. Tanya Chen. Any seconder, please? Mr. Wu Chi-wai. Ms. Tanya Chen, do you accept the nomination? I do. Okay, good. Any other nominations, please? I'll count to 5. 1. Nomination. 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Close of nomination. I think we could proceed to distribute the ballot papers. Members, please take your seat. There are 60 members in this Bills Committee, so please take your assigned seat. 60 members.
係啊，可以啦，可以得啊。OK。唔該。好，大家睇下啦。
Number 1, Mrs. Regina Ip. Number 2, Ms. Tanya Chen. 議員都係你讀1號、2號啦，係咪？好啊。我養俾你。得。
呢度有一個啱入嚟。
邊一位？你請佢哋未有？
都知道，我知道，我會。
邊個未有票先？
好啦，剛剛咧，我見到有2、3位。
I just seen 2 or 3 members joining us. If you are among the 60 members of the Bills Committee and you haven't been given ballot papers, please raise your hands. Yes, there's one over there. He's just come in. Can I say something? Mr. Chairman, can I just say one thing to the 2 candidates? There are 60 members in this Bills Committee. I hope there won't be any clash with other meetings. Please tell the chairperson who's elected. But maybe if the candidate now promises to do so, I may vote for her. No, but I think you could save that till the chairperson is elected. Have you got the ballot papers? Okay. Can I ask again? There are 60 members in the Bills Committee. If you are in the room and you haven't been given a ballot paper, please raise your hand. No one else? Okay, I'll count to 3. And then we'll stop distributing ballot papers. 1, 2, 3. Okay, no more ballot papers. Now please collect the ballot papers. I'm sure they have already voted, right? I'm sure you've done it. Okay, if you're all ready, okay, we will now collect the ballot papers.
而家我唔可以再發出。
我一陣間呢就會請2個提名人嚇。
I will invite the two members who made the nomination to come and watch the vote counting, so please be ready.
Phát 出幾多
53。
好，頭先我哋發出咗53張。
Okay, we have issued 53 pieces ballot papers. Now, can I ask if any members been given ballot paper who hasn't voted? 1, 2, 3. Okay, fine. Can I invite the two members, Mr. Jeffrey Lam and Mr. Kenneth Sham, who made the nominations, to come and observe the vote counting?
1號。
Number 1. Number 1. Number 2. Number 2. Number 1. Number 1. Number 2. Number 2. Number 1. Number 1. Number 2. Number 1. Number 1. Number 1. Number 1. Number 2. Number 1. Number 1. Number 2. Number 1. Number 1. Number 1. Number 1. Number 1. Number 2. Number 2. Number 2. Number 2. Number 2. Number 2. Number 1. Number 2. Number 2. Number 1. Number 1. Number 1. Number 1. Number 2. Number 2. Number 2. Number 2. Number 2. Number 1. Number 2. Number 1. 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 Fine. So we have issued 53 pieces of ballot papers, and we've received 50 pieces of ballot papers, and now announce the voting results. Number 1, Mrs. Regina Yip, 32 votes. Number 2, Ms. Tanya Chen, 21 votes. I declare Mrs. Regina Yip elected chairman. First of all, I would like to thank members for your support. Now, we proceed to the election of the deputy chairman. Any nominations, please? Mr. Wong Kwok Kin. I nominate Mr. Horace Cheung. Mr. Tommy Zhang seconds the nomination. Mr. Horace Cheung, do you accept the nomination? Yes, I do. Okay, thank you. Any other nominations, please? Mr. Kenneth Leung. Ms. Tanya Chen. Seconder? Mr. Jeremy Tam seconds the nomination. Mr. Chen, do you accept the nomination? Yes, I do. Any other nominations, please? No? No. Then we proceed to the election. Please issue the ballot papers. We will go for secret ballots. Now the staff are distributing the ballot papers.
Mr.
Kim Yoon, do you have a ballot paper?
主席 total 發咗51張票。
總共係發咗51張。
We distributed a total of 51 ballot papers. We now proceed to the vote.
主席，你唱票啦，好嗎？
好。好。
寫咗個簡介，
好，
一陣間需要先。
得，唔該。
寫漏咗呢個法案委員會。
得。
後邊嗰啲係有需要先。
好，唔該。俾個杯水我，呢杯係涂緊身嘅嚇，唔該。熱水嚇，唔該。51周。
可以請佢梁繼昌同埋黃國健可以請佢出嚟。
同邊個？
黃國健、梁繼昌
兩個都出咗去。
兩個都出咗去，即係提名人佢哋。
請兩位提名人呢係投完票呢。
For the two members who made the nominations, please come forward after you've cast your votes. The two nominating members, Mr. Wong Kok Kin and Mr. Kent Leung, please come forward to monitor the counting. Number one. 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 Number two. Number two. Number one. Number one. Number two. Number one. Number one. Number one. Number one. Number one. Number two. Number two. Number two. Number two. Number one. Number two. Number 2. Number 1. 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 Number 2. Number 2. Number 2. Number 2. Number 1. Number 1. Number 2. Number 2. Number 2. Number 2. Number 1. Number 1. Number 2. Number 1. Number 1. Number 1. We distributed 51 ballot papers and 51 votes were received. Mr. Chen Guoquan received 33 votes, Ms. Tanya Chen 18 votes. Mr. Horst Cheng is elected. Mr. Cheng, please come forward to help preside over the meeting. Item 2 of the agenda, meeting with the administration. We now invite the administration in. We have Ms. Teresa Chang, Secretary for Justice. Mr. Frank Chan, Secretary for Transport and Housing. Mr. Li Ka-chiu, Secretary for Security and their teams. Members, we have 2 papers today. First, a membership list and a letter from the Legal Services Department to the administration. Ms. Chen, while the administration is entering the room, I wonder if the chairman can arrange an open hearing because the matter is of high public interest. And secondly, can we make a visit to the West Kowloon station of XRL, including the mainland port area? And for the Shenzhen port, there was a similar visit at the time. So hopefully the chairman can consider these. We will deal with these under any other business. I'd like to welcome the administration to the first meeting of the Bills Committee. And the government has brought a very big team today, so I won't introduce the officials one by one. We have 3 secretaries and their teams. I'll first invite the administration to walk us through the objectives of the bill. Mr. Frank Chan, we would like to speak first. Today, the Secretary for Justice, Secretary for Security, and myself are attending the Bills Committee on the Guangzhou-Shenzhen-Hong Kong Express Rail Link Co-location Bill and the first meeting. And we would like to work with LegCo members for local legislative work so that we can conclude the final step of the 3-step process For the Hong Kong section of the XRL, as of the end of 2017, the Hong Kong section of the XRL was 98.6% completed, and it's expected to commission by the third quarter this year. The passage of the bill by LegCo is key to the commissioning of the Hong Kong section of XRL. The implementation of the co-location arrangement can offer greater convenience in commuting with mainland cities, and Hong Kong will be able to connect to more mainland cities through the XRL to dovetail with future demand. This would bring maximum convenience to passengers and maximize the transportation, economic, and social effectiveness of the XRL. Since the three-step process was announced on the 25th of July last year, there were widespread discussions in our society, and after months of deliberations and discussions, including the explanations given by officials in August 2017 to take in questions from members, the SAR government realizes that LegCo has high interest in the co-location arrangement, and as such, at a meeting on the 26th of October last year, a non-binding motion was proposed to allow LegCo members to offer their views. Subsequently, on the 15th of November last year, the motion was passed at LegCo in support of the follow-up work of the follow-up tasks of the co-location arrangement at the Hong Kong section at the West Kowloon Station. The first step of the three-step process was the cooperation arrangement between the mainland and Hong Kong SAR on the establishment of the port at the West Kowloon Station of the XRL for implementing co-location arrangements, signed on the 18th of November. The second step was the decision of the Standing Committee of the NPC on approving the cooperation arrangement, which was made on 27th of December last year, to make sure that the arrangement complied with the mainland constitution and the basic law of the SAR. And the third step is local legislation. Based on the MPCSC decision and the approved cooperation arrangement, a bill was drafted, and after scrutiny and passage at LegCo, the co-location arrangement could be implemented. The SAR government would endeavor to explain the bill in order to secure support from LegCo, and as such, the principal officials would attend before LegCo Bills Committee meetings to explain details of the bill. The Secretary for Justice, myself, and the Secretary for Security are attending the Bills Committee today to take in questions from members. We have heard the views of the Chairman and members today, and we invite all LegCo members to visit the West Kowloon Station of XRL and the locations passengers will visit, including the mainland port area. That way, members can know more about the co-location arrangement and alleviate possible doubts by certain members due to infamiliarity. After the meeting, we will work with the LegCo Secretariat to iron out the details. Ms. Chang, Mr. Lee, and myself would attend the visit. We are only about half a year away from the commissioning of the West Kowloon Station of XRL. The SAR government hopes that members would adopt a pragmatic and logical approach in scrutinizing and passing the bill. The Hong Kong section of XRL is an important strategic hub to Hong Kong's future development. I'm sure members or look forward to the commissioning of the WKS in the third quarter this year to provide efficient and comfortable XRL services for the Hong Kong people, for the benefit of the people. Thank you, Chairman.
提問嘅咧就
Members, if you wish to ask questions, please press the button. Yes, I know that. You could press the buttons first. Secretary for Justice, do you have something to say, please? Thank you, Madam Chair. Under one country, two systems, Hong Kong SAR enjoys a high degree of autonomy in accordance with the Basic Law. The Hong Kong SAR has its own immigration administration systems. The SAR government may make appropriate policies and provide the right environment to promote investments, economic development, and the people's livelihood. Mr. Chan has just explained the importance of the one country, two systems principle, the importance of the co-location arrangement and relevant matters. Now, in implementing co-location, the SAR government has to discuss and consult with the mainland authorities. Step one is the signing of the cooperation arrangement between Hong Kong and the Guangdong provincial government. Now, the cooperation arrangement is about relevant mainland authorities setting up port areas outside of the mainland boundary. So this arrangement must be submitted to the National People's Congress for approval before the arrangement could come into effect. In considering the cooperation arrangement, the NPC would consider the mainland's the Chinese constitution and Chinese laws and regulations. It follows a due process in making this decision. The NPC's decision was to approve the cooperation arrangement. The State Council was also authorized to give approval for relevant mainland authorities to set up mainland port area within the Hong Kong SAR so they could perform the duties in accordance with the law. Now, for this process, it is a step that has to be taken by the mainland side. In considering the cooperation arrangement, the NPC has the duty and the need to consider whether the arrangement is against the Constitution or the Basic Law. Having studied the cooperation arrangement, the NPC Standing Committee has confirmed that the arrangement is in line with the PRC's Constitution and the Basic Law. Now, in Hong Kong, to implement the co-location arrangement, we need to enact legislation to ensure that the co-location arrangement could be implemented in accordance with the law. Thank you. Mr. John Lee, which you would like to speak to? Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. On the operation of the co-location arrangement at the West Kowloon Station, it covers 3 points. First, this is to make sure that the arrangement is in line with the security requirements so that all possible security risks could be minimized at the WKS. And also, second point, for the day-to-day operation and the CIQ procedures could be operated smoothly at the West Kowloon Station. Third point, there must be an effective emergency rescue mechanism so any emergencies could be dealt with effectively. Now, the very first key consideration is to make sure that there is a clear delineation of boundaries between the Hong Kong port area and the mainland port area. Now, everyone must go through and entry and exit procedures and custom clearance in accordance with laws of Hong Kong before they could leave Hong Kong to take the train. Now, when members visit the West Kowloon Station of the XRL, you'll be able to see the boundaries between the two port areas, and you'll be able to see that no one could bypass the CIQ procedures in Hong Kong to leave Hong Kong. Also, together with the relevant departments, the MTRCR and the Security Bureau has set up a task force on CIQ arrangement. There is also a task force on emergency issues. Now, apart from the law enforcement agencies, the Transport and Housing Bureau, the Food and Health Bureau, the Highways Department, the Transport Department, the Department of Health, and MTRCL representatives are all on these tasks on the an emergency task force. For the LegCo task force that is responsible for considering the liaison and communication mechanism, so on. For the task force on the emergency rescue arrangement, they will lay down plans for large-scale emergency rescue, and there will be also regular joint drills. The two task forces are working proactively now. They will make sure that by the commissioning of the XIRL Hong Kong section, the CIQ arrangement at the West Kowloon station will work smoothly, and there will be mechanisms to cater to any major incidents and emergencies. This is to assure passengers. Now, we have had years of experience and expertise in CIQ procedures. We will make sure that the operation is safe, secure, and reliable. Thank you. Can you give the text of your speeches to members? No problem, right? Okay, so for 8 members have asked to speak. Any other members, please? Now, the legal advisor has written a detailed letter to the Bureau. Maybe we should ask the legal advisor to raise the basic issues about the bill, and then the Bureau could then give an explanation. Now, as the member pointed out, the legal advisor has tabled a letter to the administration. Perhaps we should wait till the administration has come back with written reply before we follow up further in details, because it covers many important constitutional, legal, and drafting issues. Perhaps we should allow the administration to give us a written reply first, and then we have discussion. Then maybe the discussion could be comprehensive. Okay, please, administration, come back with a reply as soon as possible, and then we could have a discussion. Now, 9 members have asked to speak, 4 minutes each. First one, Mr. Ronak Chen. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to ask about financial issues. Paragraph 8 of the Transport and Housing Bureau paper. The fees for the mainland port areas. Now, for the fees for using the venue, there will be a separate arrangement. The operator of the West Kowloon station, I understand that's the MTRCL, will also have discussion on the payment of maintenance and management fees. Can I ask if this arrangement is identical to that for the Shenzhen Bay port area? So is Hong Kong now paying the operator of the Shenzhen port fees? What about the land development cost? Is that an arrangement, an official arrangement between the authorities on both sides? Thank you. For the arrangement, yes, it is similar, because for the rental fees, we will discuss with the relevant mainland authorities and conclude an agreement on the fees arrangement. As for maintenance and managed fees, yes, the MTRCL would need to discuss with the main authorities and make an agreement. As for the administration, of course, we are involved as well on the future operation of the XRL, and we need to make sure that all the detailed arrangements are in line with the law. So we will, of course, come back when any agreements have been reached. So I think you're saying that for the two sets of arrangements and the reference details, you need time to thresh them out, right? So does it mean that the agreements will only be made after the commissioning of the XR, or would you be able to tell us before the commissioning about the details, including the amount involved for the two agreements? Thank you. Before the commissioning of the Hong Kong section of the XR, we would need to arrive at some consensus. And in the course of the scrutiny of the bill, in parallel, we are also working on all other aspects in relation to the commissioning. So before the commissioning of the XR, we will need to arrive at a consensus on all these fees arrangement. Next, Mr. Kenneth Lau. Thank you, Madam Chair. We need to sustain economic development. We have to integrate into the overall national development, and we need to leverage our edge, capitalize on our advantage. Now, for the co-location arrangement, it is the most convenient arrangement for passengers, also the most economical arrangement. In November last year, this council passed a motion with legislative effect on co-location, so it shows the public support co-location. For the mainland port area being set up in the West Kowloon Station, there is need for local legislation. It's not just entirely a decision by the NPCSC, and that a show of respect for the one country, two systems principle. Now, some members of the public are concerned that if mainland laws apply in the mainland port area, that may undermine the protection of the basic law to the public. Well, I think that's because they are ill-informed if they have this concern. So how could the government and step up dissemination information to the public so people know what's going on? But because some have asked, what if they lose their luggage on board of the train and they need to claim insurance? How can they do it? And whether they will be paid travel insurance and so on. And the whole process, the whole flow of the process, taking the train and so on, how is it done? So could you do more publicity to address public's concern? Secretary, for the Hong Kong section of the XRL, would link up Hong Kong people to the 25,000 kilometer high-speed rail network of the mainland, and that will substantially help to enlarge our living circle. It will also bring about immense economic potential for Hong Kong. Hong Kong people could travel further and achieve more as a result. Now, for all the implementation details, true, it is part of our plan to carry out publicity and, for example, the dissemination of information. We would tell the public about the West Kowloon Station, the ticketing arrangement, and how people could buy tickets for multi-destinations and so on. We will keep in communication with the stakeholders. And when the project is completed, we plan to stage open days so the public could see for themselves what the facilities are like. As for promotion and education ideas, we are all ears to member suggestions, and of course we'll help make sure the public know more about the arrangement so they know that the system will be very efficient and convenient. Just now, Mr. Lau said some have asked what if someone's luggage is lost, what can be done? Now, I think later on, when we will be doing more publicity with the trade, and so the public will also learn more about the arrangements involving the West Kowloon Station. Now, after the XRL is commissioned, will you engage volunteers or full-time staff to serve as ambassadors at the station so they could tell the public where they could go in or out of the area and so on?
Dr. Lo Wai Kwok. Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, the bill defines the delineation of the mainland port area at West Kowloon Station and mainland jurisdiction is to be exercised. Annex 1 contains the cooperation arrangement and including number 3, 4, and 7. And there is clear explanation of the operation of the mainland port area. And according to paragraph 3, the Hong Kong's operational concession and construction right of Hong Kong will not be affected, and the relevant assets and rights of the Hong Kong section would not be affected. Those matters would be dealt with based on the laws of Hong Kong. And in paragraph 7, it's even more specific. It contains the provisions on the designated personnel. So does it show that in terms of the daily operation, at the mainland port area and the train compartment, a lot of services are provided by Hong Kong operators, and according to paragraph 3, for the personnel providing services, they are seen as working in Hong Kong, or the arrangements would be comparable. For salaries tax, would they be considered to be working in Hong Kong or working in the mainland? Can you explain that, please? Secretary, thank you very much for the question. As for the reserved or non-reserved matter, it's mainly have to do with the application of the laws or jurisdiction. As for personnel working at West Kowloon Station, even if they are working in the mainland port area, since they travel to and from Hong Kong every day, the salaries, taxes, and remuneration are same as Hong Kong personnel. We have certain reserved matters because the arrangements should be consistent with Hong Kong, and there should not be any differences. And according to the provisions, only special treatment will be given under special circumstances in the mainland port area. For mainland personnel and operators in the Hong Kong port area, we have covered that under paragraphs 3 and 4 of the cooperation arrangement. For the port area facilities, some might be set up or managed by the mainland. For example, the clearance facilities, they might include the E-channels used for clearance purposes. As for the operation of the XRL, there are some facilities on the Hong Kong side. So how would you define them? And would some of them or some of the work be taken up or maintained or operated by mainland personnel? Secretary, as for the equipment and devices, for the designated equipment used by mainland authorities, the rest would be dealt with under the laws of Hong Kong. Ms. Tanya Chen. Thank you, Chairman. Before we visit the West Kowloon Station, including the mainland port area, would there be any floor plans? I've been asking since July last year, and will the media be attending the visit? Thank you very much for the question. For the purpose of this bill, we have provided the relevant coordinates because the bill would delineate the mainland port area. So in the blue bill, we have the coordinates. As for the floor plans, we would provide them to LegCo later on. I have showed this plan already. This is the overall plan or a diminished plan at the Shenzhen port. So this is the full plan of the Hong Kong port area, including canine rooms, dangerous goods stores. All these are included. I asked this before, and they asked us to look at the very simple diagrams. Of course, I know that there are coordinates. The same, this map also has coordinates, so I don't see any conflict here. And I have a rather technical question. If the mainland port area is to be enlarged, or under the cooperation arrangement, some provisions would be amended. I'd like to know its relevance with the bill we are looking at. Thank you very much. We would like to explain the matter as well. The plan in Ms. Tanya Chan's maps is the overall master plan of the Shenzhen port area, and I have a copy as well. This map serves to introduce the different facilities or the main facilities or layouts at the Shenzhen port, and there are no details. I can discuss the map with you later, but please come back to my two questions. As for the delineation of the mainland port area, the reason we need coordinates is that according to the blue bill, if we are to amend the area, the matter must be taken to the State Council for record. So in other words, if we are to change the amended delineation, we have to seek the State Council's approval. As I said, this is within the mainland. This is about the mainland port area, and the cooperation arrangement was signed between the SAR government and the mainland authorities. And Article 5 of the arrangement stipulates the arrangements on amendments. So in other words, the Hong Kong laws are only of a supplementary nature, while the State Council would be making the calls. We are carrying out local legislation, and I'm sure LegCo members can offer some guidance. I do not understand what you are talking about. We are scrutinizing the bill. You should be more specific and concrete in your words. According to the basic law, we cannot pass any bills that contravene the basic law. Can the relevant government officials make a response? We will proceed to the clause by clause examination later. Secretary for Justice, thank you very much for the question. I'd like to add a few points. First of all, we are looking at the delineations according to the decision or cooperation arrangement. If any amendments are to be made, further negotiations must be made by both parties according to the cooperation arrangement. As I said, this would ensure that the cooperation arrangement can be enforced. So if there are any amendments, we would have to see what those amendments specifically are before we can address this question. Dr. Lena Wong, Chairman. I have some questions about the legal issues. Just now, the Secretary talked about the second step of the three-step process. The MPCSC stated that under the co-location arrangement, there would be a mainland port area, and this is in compliance with the mainland constitution and the basic law. And the Bar Association also raised a number of questions, and they feel that the MPCSC decision did not offer any solid legal justification, and MPCSC as the highest constitutional body, they say that this does not contradict with the mainland constitution, and they didn't offer any explanation. I hope Ms. Cheng can explain to us the specific legal basis for making such claims, that it would not contravene the constitution or basic law. So if you can alleviate the doubts raised by the Bar Association, this would be conducive to our scrutiny work. According to the basic law, we cannot pass any bill that contravenes the basic law. I did not hear any explanation from the Secretary for Justice. You simply said that the MPCSC said it did not contravene the basic law or constitution, but can you offer the specific legal basis? First of all, Hong Kong enjoys a high degree of autonomy, so as appropriate, it can provide for certain policies for the co-location arrangement. As Mr. Frank Chan said, this has been fulfilled early on. The cooperation arrangement was signed between the SAR government and the mainland, and the relevant provisions therein would facilitate the implementation of co-location. If we are to implement the co-location arrangement in Hong Kong, we must legislate to ensure that the cooperation arrangement can be enforced. So we hope that LegCo would pass the bill so that the co-location bill can be passed. I did not hear any legal justification. She talked about a high level of autonomy. Does that include the cessation of a site where mainland jurisdiction is to be exercised? Do we have the right to seize part of our area? Secretary of Justice, perhaps Dr. Wong somehow misunderstood the situation. As Mr. Frank Chan explained, this is a leasing arrangement. Do I still have time, Chairman? Even though you said the site is leased, as the gatekeeper of the judiciary, according to the basic law, Hong Kong mainland laws and national laws cannot be enforced in Hong Kong, with the exception of those in Annex 3 of the basic law. Hong Kong practices one country, two systems, and we exercise our own jurisdiction. So, but apparently our jurisdiction is being jeopardized. So as the gatekeeper, can you explain how we are not contravening the basic law? Mr. Frank Chan, perhaps my question is for the Secretary for Justice. This is a question about the Constitution, not about transportation. The MPCSD decision made it clear that the exercising of mainland jurisdiction at WKS would be limited to areas of the West Kowloon Station, and there is a mainland port area at WKS, and there are different enforcement agencies. The enforcement agency at WKS are mainland agencies, whereas the units under Article 18 Hong Kong enforcement units. The MPCSC decision has made this very clear. Chairman, we put this question to the Secretary for Justice rather than Secretary for Transport and Housing. As for the unanswered questions, including the doubts raised by the Bar Association, can we invite Ms. Cheng to give us a written response? Your time is up. I'm sure Ms. Cheng would be able to answer your questions later. Mr. Wu Chi-wai. Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to ask about the jurisdiction as well.
Now, Mr. Frank Chen referred to the explanations given by Mr. Zhang Xiaoming, which are supplemental to the decision. But constitutionally, my question is for the Secretary for Justice. Constitutionally, for the decisions on which Mr. Zhang Xiaoming gave explanations, that part of the decision. So would the explanations have the same legal effect as the decisions of the MPCSC? Secretary for Justice, I wouldn't say I am entirely familiar with the mainland laws, but I learned from colleagues of the Department of Justice, when the MPCSC makes a decision on a legal matter, because there are many ways to make laws, an explanation, rule or regulation, and so on. Now, but usually when a decision is made, it is accompanied by explanations. The explanations will explain the legislative intent and background of the decision. So you mean the explanations have the effect of interpreting the decision? Now, the explanations give the legislative intent and a background to the need for the this piece of law, and also in the explanations, the legal basis of the decision is given. Well, may I ask then, in the explanations, it is said that why in Hong Kong the co-location arrangement could be implemented because, as Mr. Frank Chen says, because only part of the laws only apply to part of Hong Kong. Now, this concept of applying national laws to part of Hong Kong, a designated part of Hong Kong, this arrangement, does it also apply to any other circumstances? And if, say, national law of the mainland is to be applied to a designated part of Hong Kong, then what are the procedures, the mechanisms, and the principles that are relevant, please? I think you're referring to Article 18 of the Basic Law. Is that that's my understanding? Yes, correct. Okay, Article 18 of the law refers to the application of national laws in the Hong Kong SR. These are laws listed in Annex 3 to the law, and these laws have to be applied locally by way of promulgation of legislation. Now, there is this requirement. This is about national laws on defense and foreign affairs matters. So these are laws are not within the scope of autonomy of Hong Kong, and that's when Article 18 could be applied. Please let the Secretary finish. No, sorry, no, I'm not talking about the application of Article 18. I'm talking about a similar situation like the co-location arrangement. That is applying mainland laws on boundary control. So how come these laws could be applied in Hong Kong? It's because we're told the laws only apply to a part of Hong Kong, in this case the West Kowloon Station. That's why these national laws could be applied. Now, Mr. Wu, I think Secretary would like to give an explanation starting with Article 18. Please allow her. Now, I gave Dr. Helena Wong a bit more time, so Secretary, can I invite you to finish up? Yes. I explained what national laws under Article 18 mean, That's the first point. Second point, now Mr. Frank Chang is not a legal expert, but his understanding is correct. So that's why now I'm trying to explain what Mr. Frank Chang said by way of legal points. Now, for Article 18, the national laws apply to the whole of Hong Kong. As for the co-location arrangement, the mainland laws only apply to the mainland port area in the West Counter Station. That's another point. And then one more point is whether that law, when it's applied, will affect myself. That's a factor to be considered. For Article 18, this here, the reference is about something that applies to all people in Hong Kong. As for the co-location arrangement, the mainland laws refer to only apply to passengers of the SAR, and the only reason why people go there is because they want to take the train to go between Hong Kong and the mainland. So that's the second point. Third point, now how do we implement national laws? In Article 18, the implementation of national laws will require, first of all, implementation by the relevant department authorities in Hong Kong to do so. But for the application of mainland laws in the mainland port area, it is handed over to the relevant mainland authorities. So that's why the situation is entirely different than that provided for under Article 18. So can I please say a bit more? Yes, you've mentioned 3 points. I would like to allow you a chance to give a full explanation. So please continue. Thank you. And then members asked, is it the case that we can do something similar anywhere in Hong Kong, that is the application of mainland laws? The answer is no. For the mainland port area arrangement, apart from enjoying a high degree of autonomy, it's also because of a policy that's been made, and then there's an arrangement that's been arrived at with the mainland authorities, so we could implement a certain policy. So that's the background. Now, some say that maybe the NPC may apply mainland laws anywhere in Hong Kong anytime, but that's totally unfounded. The reason why we're able to do this is because of the high degree of autonomy in Hong Kong, is also because of the cooperation arrangement. But of course, when we legislate, we have to make sure that it's not against the basic law. And hopefully with my explanations just now, I have managed to explain to you that it's not against the basic law. Ms. Elamax, I'll try to be brief because I would like the Secretary to make some clarifications. Now, Secretary, it doesn't matter what you say. Some will not listen because they have their own agenda. So your explanation will probably not go down for some. But can you please clarify 3 misperceptions to the public following this proceedings? First, some say the MPCSC decision has no legal basis. Some say then the MPCSC is imposing this decision on us. Can you explain if that's the case? Second point, now you read the banners here and you read and you heard some say this is cession of land, but can you be very specific? Is it an exaggeration or even misleading statement that this is a cession of land in Hong Kong? Now, third point is about introducing national laws to Hong Kong. Is that the case? And Secretary, I'm sure you will want to offer answers, but now it's your turn. A question for you. Now, are you sure? Is it the case that we must commission the XRL in the third quarter of 2018? What if the rail project is ready, but we haven't finished our legislative exercise? What will happen? Does it mean that there won't be co-location or there won't be commissioning of the XRL? Well, my question is straightforward. Let me answer first. Yes, go ahead, please. For co-location arrangement, is in line with our core values. It's in accordance with the law. Step 3, local legislation. If we don't finish this step, then the commissioning of XRL will not happen. So that's why I appeal to members to be rational and pragmatic and bear in mind the well-being of the people of Hong Kong. You mean if the legislation is not ready, then there's no commissioning? Correct. Secretary for Justice. Thank you for the questions. I'm grateful for this opportunity to give an explanation. For point 3, I have already replied to a similar point by another member, so allow me not to repeat that because I've explained what is the correct interpretation of Article 18. Now, so to save time, I won't repeat that point. First, what is the legal basis of the MPCSC decision? As I said in my brief opening remarks, I mentioned that this is a necessary step in the mainland law system. That is, once a cooperation arrangement has been signed and before this arrangement could take effect, there is a need for approval by the MPCSC. Why? Why is it necessary to seek the approval of the MPCSC? Because the cooperation arrangement involves mainland authorities setting up a port area outside the mainland. So that's why this is a necessary step. Constitutionally, the MPCSC has this powers and obligations to do so. The MPCSC may also make decision on other matters. Our understanding is this decision has the equivalent status of a piece of legislation. So that's how we should understand this arrangement. Now, as to when the MPCSC considers whether to approve the arrangement, then they have to consider the other party to the cooperation arrangement, that's the Hong Kong side. And that is whether this is against the basic law or the Constitution. So the MPCSC has also considered this aspect. Now, the legal basis was explained in the explanations, and the MPCSC has confirmed that the cooperation arrangement is in line with the Constitution and the basic law. Sorry, I have gone past the time limit. Can I continue, please? Yes, please do. Now, the second point is about how we deal with the area and so on. Let me try to explain to you from the legal point of view. The boundary of the Hong Kong SR has not changed. The area covered by the Hong Kong SR has not changed. That is, the territory has not changed. So it's still within the boundary of the territory is still within the boundary of the Hong Kong SAR. But we have made adjustments to laws applicable within this territory by the mainland authorities. So this is an adjustment under the cooperation arrangement. Well, there are many reasons why this adjustment is pragmatic and will make things work. Perhaps the two other secretaries could explain that in a moment. But anyway, within Hong Kong, the boundary has not changed, the territory has not changed, just that within a small area of the SAR, there's an adjustment to the laws applicable and the jurisdiction, and there's a practical reason for that. Well, for the Shenzhen Bay port, similar considerations were made. Perhaps I will leave the actual operation arrangements to the other two secretaries. I hope I have explained that clearly to you. Yes, that's a full explanation. Thank you.
Mr. Charles Moore. In the early discussions of the co-location arrangement, some people asked about the proposal to implement national laws in train compartments of operating trains and the mainland port area. And when a train is in operation, it would contain passengers and personnel traveling to and from the mainland. And as for the track, it's not always occupied. So when a train is in operation, the passengers or personnel in the compartments would be subject to national laws. And technically speaking, we have not discussed this for quite some time. So I'd like to know if there are any updates. Have you come up with any new or special technologies so that for national laws such as the firewall, content censorship, etc., have you discussed the relevant work to be done with local or mainland telecom operators in order to enforce the national laws? What do these national laws actually include, which might affect Hong Kong people? Can you come up with a list? For example, content censorship through a firewall, because this would affect the obligations of telecom operators. China is enacting the Internet security law, and some people might inadvertently breach the national laws because they thought they are in Hong Kong. And another issue are roaming charges. Passengers might have to pay a lot of extra roaming costs, as such the Communications Authority might have to issue another APA to remind passengers. Mr. Chan, thank you very much. For telecommunications control, Mr. Mok would know more about the latest technologies than me. The compartment would belong to the mainland port area, while the XLL track would belong to the Hong Kong port area. And there is telecom access at the tracks, and as such, those inside the compartments would also receive telecom signals. So for those using Hong Kong SIM cards, the passengers would enjoy the same services as they are in Hong Kong. So the use of Hong Kong SIM cards in the compartments would not be subject to roaming fees. As for the issue of filtering for signals received on the track, the arrangement would be same as in Hong Kong. So from the public's perspective, there should not be any difference. As for whether we can provide a list of national laws, as you know, the national laws are very long, and the application of laws would depend on the specific situation. So providing a list might be somewhat misleading to the public. And laws are also constantly updated, and there would be new laws at all times. So if we are to provide a list, the list would have to be constantly updated. So this is not a pragmatic option. Instead, I hope we can play by the rule of law, and the Hong Kong laws should apply in Hong Kong. As for other jurisdictions, we must respect the relevant jurisdictions. Thank you very much. Dr. Fernando Chang. He's not here. Ms. Dari Lee. Chairman, I declare that a company which appoints me is the auditor of the MTR Corporation, but I'm not personally involved. As for the commissioning target of the XRL, it will be the 3rd quarter according to the government, so the time is certainly tight. even though, well, we are less than a year away from the third quarter, and with the Bills Committee just set up, members would have a lot of questions, and there would be resumption of second reading at the Legislative Council, so the time is certainly very tight. I feel that the Bills Committee must be well prepared, and the DAB would also be well prepared, because we must ensure that the XLL would be commissioned by the third quarter. LegCo is certainly very busy, and members have a lot of questions to ask. You said that if the scrutiny is not completed on time, the commissioning date will be uncertain, and this is something I cannot accept. Secretary, you must ensure that the LegCo would not delay matters. We have to answer the questions, but we cannot. We must ensure that the XLL is commissioned on time. For those who are against the XLL or the co-location arrangement, we have heard plenty of views from them. Even the zero-step process, so-called, by the government cost us a lot of time. There were adjournment motions, a motion to dispel members of the press and the public, even though that would this kind of antic will no longer be possible with the amendments to the ROP. But I believe that the Secretary should be well prepared. For those who are against the co-location arrangement, they came up with plenty of slogans which were misleading. For example, they put up a sign calling the co-location arrangement as cession of land. So the Secretary should explain to us that there is no cession of land because the area still belongs to Hong Kong. So such slogans were unacceptable. And some people talked about the MPCSC ruling Hong Kong. So I like the Secretary to talk about the relationship between one country, two systems and MPCSC. And we have one country, two systems because of the MPCSC. So these matters must be explained, and they should not throw these slogans around casually. So I hope you can explain the role of the MPCSC. Secretary, the public has genuine concerns about the mainland port area. If you can come up with question and answer kits for the public, or if you can issue simple reminders to the public, our work would be much smoother. Ms. Lee, you raised a lot of questions, so I hope the government officials can address the most important points first. Thank you very much. As for our local legislative work, the current term government is not underestimating the challenges. We would do our very best in making explanations in future meetings, and through explanations on site, we hope to allow members to know more. Some members might have concerns, but if you look at the provisions of the bill, it is not a very long bill. There are only 3 parts and 8 provisions. If we are serious and conscientious in our work, I believe 2.5 months would be enough, and hopefully members can support the bill. For public concerns and matters of reminder in the mainland port area, I want to explain that Hong Kong residents and tourists alike, so long as they respect local laws and acts properly, there is no cause for concern. But as some members said, due to a lack of understanding or knowledge, there might be issues. So we will prepare question and answer kits for the public. And hopefully this can reassure the Hong Kong public so that they would welcome the commissioning of the XRL. Would the Secretary like to talk about the NPCSC decision and the cession of land? Thank you very much. I won't use the term cession of land because such claim is completely unjustified. The members pointed out that Article 7 of the Basic Law made it very clear that the land and natural resources within the Hong Kong SAR shall be state property, and Hong Kong has the rights of management, and this includes the leasing of land. So this is very clear, and this is certainly indisputable. As for the role of the NPCSC, it should be stated clearly. According to the constitution of the PRC, the NPCSC is the highest body, and the NPCSC is a standing body, and according to the constitution, it holds the right to explain and enact the national laws. According to the Basic Law, the NPCSC also holds the right of interpretation to the Basic Law. So I'd like to reiterate these points. Dr. Fernando Chang. He's not here. Mr. Ray Chan. Thank you, Chairman. A number of establishment members made claims that I could not agree with, including the claims on convenience, economic benefits, etc. We are discussing the legal basis and provisions at the Bills Committee. Convenience and economic benefits would not justify legal ambiguities or problems. If convenience and economic benefits are important, then you should seek to amend the laws and the Basic Law instead of asking us not to stand in the way. I agree with one of the points made by Ms. Sari Lee. She said members should not be lazy in scrutinizing the bill. We have 60 members of the Bills Committee and we do not have a quorum now. In theory, I can claim a quorum in order to summon the members. So in the future, when the chairman arranges meetings, you should endeavor to come up with time slots that would not clash with other meetings. Members, including Ms. Dari Lee, said that if the legislative work cannot be completed, would the XRL not be commissioned? They want to shift the blame to those who feel that the scrutiny should take longer. First of all, these questions were not asked by us today. You came up with a three-step process proposal in July last year. We have been asking the questions for years since the funding for XRL was first discussed, even for the proposal last July. The legal basics under the Basic Law given by Mr. Rimsky-Yun was different. At that time, he talked about Article 20 and the authorization of the NPC, but you are no longer talking about this now. So you should not talk about the passing of the non-binding motion. The explanations you offered were completely different. So we should have another debate and vote on the motion. So I hope the government can answer this question. You said if the scrutiny of the bill cannot be completed, XRL cannot be commissioned. There's another possibility. Could there be any judicial reviews if there's a JR and you lose the case? What would happen? Do you have any plan B? The Secretary said the answer is no. So how about it takes time even for the NPCSC to interpret the laws? If the are you going to take clearance at 2 locations as an option if the case is lost? For other issues, we would have a discussion after the meeting. Secretary, thank you very much for the question. As you know, for the design of the Hong Kong section of the XRL, it has all along been designed and constructed based on the co-location arrangement. So if the Bills Committee does not pass the bill, co-location cannot be implemented. And this would be a manifestation of the rule of law of Hong Kong. As for whether we have any plan B, since the infrastructure and hardware facilities could not be modified in a short time, a plan B would not be possible. As someone outside of the legal profession, for the court made by the so-called final court, the MPCSC is a highest legal body de facto, and if you do not agree with their decision, please allow him to finish. Please give me a few more seconds. Chairman, so he means that the court should not accept any judicial reviews because the MPCSC is already the highest body, or the Privy Council. This is not what I said. He was putting words in my mouth. So based on what the SJ said, the MPCSC is the highest source of power of the nation. So if we play by the rule of law, it's the same issue. I am very uncomfortable because with what the Secretary said, the courts would not accept judicial reviews. Your time is up.
Mr. Michael Tan, you've waited a long time. Please, Mr. Tan. Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you please let Mr. Michael Tan speak first? I'll give you a chance to speak later. Eddie Chu, you're waiting for your turn, and I've waited a long time for my turn too. I won't let you raise a point of order because I've already called upon Mr. Tan to speak. The Pan-Democrats accuse the pro-establishment camp of evading legal issues, and we just focus on economic issues, but I have plenty of questions on all issues, but I will do it step by step. This is just the first meeting. I don't think we should go fast forward to these reserved matters or freedom of information, whether there's roaming charges and so on. I think we could take it one issue at a time. I think what we should talk about today is now there are people who think the co-location arrangement is against the basic law. The government and the Secretary for Justice say that it's not against the basic law. And then the MPCSC has an explanation too. And that's what the general public know about. And what does that mean? Is it really against the basic law? Well, I would say at the end of the day, it's for the local courts to decide. And I'm quite sure there will be someone sooner or later who will seek judicial review. And then will the courts accept such applications? They're saying because the MPCSC has already said something, so even the courts won't accept the applications. That means the local courts will never get involved in stating their position as to whether this is against the basic law. So my question for the Secretary for Justice is this. If, say, someone seeks a judicial review, let's say after the legislation is enacted and someone seeks a judicial review, do you think local courts could take on such applications? Secretary for Justice? Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Member, for the question. If anyone seeks a judicial review, he has to give his justifications. And then the consideration is in accordance with Article 11 of the Basic Law, that is whether it is against the provisions of the Basic Law. So at this point, we do not know exactly the justifications of the judicial review, so it will be difficult for me to give you an answer. But if I could say this, as the first step of judicial review application, the court must first consider the justifications of the judicial review and whether there is a reasonable chance of success. So there is a test to apply, and then the court will decide whether to grant leave to hear the judicial review. And a member asked, what if someone loses a case? Well, there could be many possible scenarios also. My apology then, Madam Chair or member. I cannot really explain specifically what will happen because I do not even know what the justifications for a possible judicial review are. Now, usually at council meeting and we ask questions at the council, we say that we should not ask hypothetical questions or seek legal advice. So can I follow up, Madam Chair? Now, you do not know what the justifications for the judicial review would be, but do you think the court will consider these applications even though you do not know the justifications? That's still hypothetical. Yes, exactly, Madam Chair. As the chair pointed out, this is a hypothetical question. It's also a question of legal advice. So the court may or may not accept the case. You wouldn't know, right? It depends on the nature of the case, right? So if the case leave is not granted, then that decision could also be subject to judicial review, right? So we wouldn't know yet. Is that what you're saying now? So it has nothing to what the MPCSC has said, right? SJ, do you have anything to add? No, not really, because I cannot speculate what the justifications are for any judicial review. Now, the reasons and the justifications for the MPCSC's decisions are spelled out clearly, so I won't want to speculate. Next, Mr. Eddie Chu, it's your turn. No, it's Dr. Fernando Johnson. Oh, Dr. Jones back here. But can I please go back to my point of order? Yes, please. Can I ask the Secretary for Transport and Housing to clarify this? In the status of the Privy Council in 1997 is equivalent to the status of the MPCSC now. Can you clarify whether that's what you try to say? Because from what I read, the power of final adjudication is in Hong Kong. Well, the Secretary said he's not a legal expert. That's why now I'm giving him the opportunity to clarify himself. Madam Chair, Mr. Eddie Chu is actually stating his own views. He said, I said so, but I didn't. What I said was put on record. I just said that was the circumstances before 1997. I'm just saying that if we talk about the spirit of the rule of law and we respect the law and the legal system, then we should adopt the same attitude and respecting the spirit of the law. That's all. Dr. Fernando Zhang, so you're back. Sorry, yes, because the Welfare Services Panel is also having a meeting, so there's a clash of meeting. Now, the co-location arrangement proposed by the government is against the Basic Law. That is my view. Many members of the pan-democratic camp have stated our position clearly, and many in the legal profession have also made it clear that this is certainly against the Basic Law. It's obvious. Now, of course, the MPCSC is saying that is our say, and the decision of the MPCSC already has legal effect, so it overrides the Basic Law. Sorry, Madam Chair, I wasn't here most of the time. I don't know if other members have asked this question, and I think the government has the duty to in fact, before tabling the bill, submit a detailed paper to explain this whole proposal, this bill. How is it that it's not against the Basic Law? Because I still haven't seen such a document, but I think the government has the legal obligation to explain how this bill you have proposed is not against the basic law. So please give us the document as soon as possible. In fact, before the Bills Committee starts its work, the government has the duty to provide that. Dr. Cheung, many members asked about the legal basis. Well, the Secretary for Justice already explained that. She spent several minutes. Well, but that's only her verbal explanation. But there's nothing in black and white, and even the Privy Council was cited just now. So I'm asking about a proper document. Well, I haven't finished, Dr. Cheung. The legal advisor has tabled a letter on various points of law. The administration will be giving reply, and it also covers constitutional issues. Secretary of Justice, you have already spoken for a few minutes. Would you like to repeat your points? Madam Chair, I don't have anything to add for now. Fine if you don't have anything to add. Can I ask the government this? Under the co-location arrangement, the Hong Kong SAR and the MTRCL have signed a contract, right? Is there any contract or memorandum on the operation of the XRL? If so, can I ask the government disclose this document to this council? Secretary, can you do that? Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Dr. Cheung. About the operation arrangement for the MTRCL, yes, that's under negotiation. For the agreement, we will provide information in an appropriate manner to this council. Now, for your past memorandum signed with the MTRCL, please make that available to us. What about the financial analysis? Can you provide information to this council? Secretary, could you disclose such information? Thank you, Madam Chair. On Dr. Cheung's request, I think we must see that for any cooperation arrangements that it covers commercial operations or certain data. We'll go by the established principle. Whatever we could disclose, we will disclose. Madam Chair, can you ask them to provide timetable for the disclosure of such information? And I must make it clear again, for the construction of the XRL, it's paid by public money. We're not talking about purely private commercial interests. We're talking about public resources and ample of that. So both the government and the MTRCL have the obligation to give transparent account to the public. About the disclosure, such as financial information and so on, is there any code on disclosure of information? If so, please give us that code too. Secretary. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Dr. Cheung. I think Dr. Cheung has made it very clear. That is, we must try to be as transparent as possible and provide as much information as possible. And we all in agreement on that principle, so we'll see what we can do. Next, Mr. Eddie Chu, it's your turn now, to be followed by Mr. Ben Chen. Thank you, Madam Chair. Many members, in particular those from the pro-establishment camp, always say that there are some who believe this is against the basic law, some who believe there's a problem. And this some is actually the Bar Association. Secretary for Justice, Mr. Richard Jiang, you are a senior counsel, so the Bar Association also represents you. And this Bar Association that also represents you published a statement on the 29th of December last year. And the position so strong is unprecedented. And point 4, it says that the association says the Hong Kong base of the firm view that none of the basic law provisions referred to the explanations made by Zhang Xiaoming provide a source of authority for the co-location arrangement. And then it also says that because the mainland laws only apply to the port area of the West Kowloon Station and not the whole territory, so therefore it is not against Article 18. So the Hong Kong BA considers that the suggestion is totally against any novel reading, goes against any plain reading of the article. And then the Hong Kong BA also says that it said that the NPCSC collocation decision is in line with it's consistent with the Constitution of the People's Republic of China and the Basic Law without stating how this is so. The Bar Association finds it appalling. So it is like saying that this plainly amounts to an announcement by the NPCSC that anything that's so stated by the NPC is the SC is the case. So this is the most retrograde step in the implementation of basic law and severely undermines public confidence in one country, two systems, and the rule of law in the Hong Kong SAR. Now I have quoted these 3 paragraphs of the Bar Association's statement because I want to ask the Secretary for Justice a question. Now you are a senior counsel, and as you are a member of the Bar Association. The Bar Association has made such a stern statement. So when the Bills Committee is to consider the bill, would you be prepared for an open debate with the chairman of the Bar Association? That is, whether the Bar Association's position is correct or your position is correct.
Secretary for Justice, any response to the statement from the Hong Kong Bar Association? First of all, whether there's any provision under the Basic Law to permit a co-location arrangement. We must understand that Basic Law is a constitutional document and it entails the important principles as safeguards. As such, it would not list out all the matters in detail. When the Basic Law was enacted, nobody foresaw the implementation of the co-location arrangement. And as such, on new needs and new situations, LegCo would enact new laws so long as they do not go against Article 11(2) of the Basic Law. The Legislative Council is entitled to enact new laws to meet the new needs of Hong Kong. So this is a response on the Basic Law. Ms. Eddie Chu cited paragraph 5 of the statement on the interpretation of the Basic Law, Article 18. I have explained this issue already, and I do not see how this would lead to the application of mainland laws to any part of the SAR, and I would not repeat what I've already said. Mr. Chu mentioned that under paragraph 6, the Bar Association said they do not see the legal basis to the cooperation agreement. So on the decision, explanations, and the Basic Law as a whole, we should look at the big picture, and the most important element is high degree of autonomy for Hong Kong and the cooperation arrangement between Hong Kong and the mainland. We should then, so when we look at Article 18 of the Basic Law, I have explained the legal basis from a Hong Kong perspective on how it does not breach the Basic Law. Of course, everyone is entitled to a different view on such explanation or interpretation. But if you look at the explanation, decision, and the basic law, you can see that there is very sound legal backing as to whether we should have a debate. I do not feel that this should be addressed here. To me, a debate is not the best way to deal with the matter. Very often, a debate will lead to polarized opinion, and it does not facilitate an objective discussion. So, Ms. Chang, did you reject the idea of a debate? Apparently, you made it sound it's not very useful. But she did not say very sure that whether she would have a debate. Next, Mr. Champan. He has been waiting for a long time. After Mr. Chan is completed, I would deal with arrangements for upcoming meetings and our upcoming visit. Just now, Ms. Sedishu selectively cited parts of the statement from the Hong Kong Bar Association, but I think we should look at the big picture. On the cooperation arrangement, the State Council also made a statement. They said the arrangement has considered the matters of concern of the SAR. It complies with the mainland constitution and the basic law and the actual needs of West Kowloon Station of XRL. And it would ensure the effective and smooth operation of the mainland port area. So we should not be selective in extracting certain words from a body. So with a new chairman, well, if the new chairman of the body said something else, Mr. Chu would choose not to quote his words. Well, in the past, Mr. Chu did not agree with some of the things said by the Bar Association. So when we scrutinize the bill, so long as we aim to be constructive, I think we have enough time for scrutiny. If this can be passed before the summer recess in July, in other words, if we can complete the scrutiny by May or June, it can be introduced into the Council. But of course, we have to look at the actual circumstances. Some people talked about cession of land, but the proposal, the eventual proposal surprised them because there was no cession of land. And some people said that part of Hong Kong would be isolated, but that did not materialize. So no matter what the government proposes, they would oppose the plan. In order to prepare for different forms of opposition that we will see, I have a question for the Secretary. When would be the when should be the deadline for the scrutiny of the bill if we are to meet the commissioning target of September? So what is the deadline or timeline for scrutiny? If we pass that deadline, then it would be very difficult for the bill to be passed. So at least you should give the public a general idea. Secretary, would you like to talk about the timeline? Thank you very much. To commission the Hong Kong section of XRL in Q3 and to implement co-location, the bill must be, the scrutiny of the bill must be completed and the bill must be passed by the current legislative year. In other words, by the final council meeting in mid-July. You still have some time. Any follow-up questions? Chairman, if we are to introduce the bill into LegCo by mid-July, it is very easy to jeopardize this bill. So I urge members to scrutinize the bill sensibly so that the public can enjoy the XRL later. So that's all for the first round of questions. Items 3 and 4 of the agenda. I would like to talk about the arrangements for upcoming meetings. The Secretariat has examined the all available time slots of LegCo, and the best time slot should be Friday morning. So in the future, we would meet at 10:45 a.m. every Friday. The next meeting will be the 23rd of February, which is a Friday at 10:45 a.m. At the beginning of this meeting, Ms. Tanya Chen talked about the idea of a visit. The administration has discussed with the MTR Corporation, and they would invite all LegCo members and the members of the subcommittee on railways to visit the facilities at West Kowloon Station, and the proposed date is the 27th of February, which is a Tuesday in the afternoon. Ms. Chen, I'm eager to see the facilities, but I wonder if we can wait till after the 11th of March, when we, after the by-election, this might be somewhat inconvenient to the MTR Corporation, but for a matter of such importance, I hope we can consider pushing it back by another 2 or 3 weeks. So the meeting today would conclude on time, so I wonder whether the Secretary for Justice will come again. The Secretary has been very irresponsible. When the after the co-location arrangement or proposal was announced on 25th of July, I have written to him repeatedly, and the answers he gave was very trivial. I think he was taking advantage of the or exploiting the procedures, and I want to remind members that for the Shenzhen port, we had 16 meetings during that time. Ms. Chen, I'm yet to deal with one of the issues you raised, and that is visit to the West Kowloon Station. You asked whether the visit will be open to the media. Secretary, we are happy to invite the media, but due to the volume of people, we will introduce a pooling arrangement, and they would send representatives. We have a total of 60 members at the Bills Committee, so together with government officials and MTRC staff, we hope to iron out the arrangements. Can the visit be arranged after the by-election? For the newly elected members, another visit can be arranged. Chairman, it would cost the XRL, the government, and NTR Corporation a lot of resources to arrange a visit. That's why I came up with this proposal. I'm sure many members would like to see the West Kowloon Station. So I would defer this to the Secretary. What about other members? What do you think? I declare that I'm an independent non-executive director of the MTR Corporation. So as legislators, we would like to see the facilities as soon as possible. There's no need to wait for the 4 newly elected members. Without the 4 members, our work still proceeds as usual. Mr. Xiu Ka-fai and Ms. Horace Chang, I support arranging a visit as soon as possible for the newly elected members. Another visit can be arranged later, and they are not part of the Bills Committee. I have made a visit already, so if other members would like to see the facilities, we should arrange a visit soon. Ms. Horace Chang, first of all, there's an urgency to the matter. We need to deal with this as soon as possible. And if we have to wait for the 4 members, well, there are 2 vacant seats. So are we going to wait for those seats to be filled? We cannot wait endlessly. So we should be pragmatic. As Mr. Shek Chen, with new members, I'm sure the government would be willing to arrange extra visits.
I'm sure the government officials have heard members loud and clear. So we'll arrange the visit for the 27th of February and welcome members to join the visit. Next meeting, as I said, it will be on the 23rd of February, 10:45 a.m. That's after the Chinese New Year. Please mark it in your diary. We'll have a meeting every Friday. If necessary, we'll have additional meetings. Thank you.
公聽會我哋可以安排嘅，不過都要揾時間。
So we need to find time for that too. Thank you very much for coming to the meeting. Meeting adjourned.